Okay, I'm going to get started this morning by welcoming everyone. Sawadee Kap. Nice to see all of you guys here. Welcome to everyone joining us online. Today is our group learning program where each Sunday and Wednesday I come together with students, helping them to understand the path to enlightenment. We just restarted this program from the very beginning. And what we typically do is each Sunday I go chapter by chapter in this book. It's a 7-month program that's helping you to be able to establish a foundation in the path to enlightenment. This book is titled Developing a Life Practice, the path that leads to enlightenment. You can actually download it for free from our website. You can take it and go print it if you like. You can get printed versions here by reimbursing us for the printing cost, or you can order it on Amazon if you like. And what I've been doing over the last couple of Sundays is I have a 3-part series of helping students to understand the Eightfold Path. The Eightfold Path is the core central teaching of the Buddha. And today we're in part 3 of 3, where we're going to be learning the mental discipline section of the Eightfold Path. There's 3 individual sections: wisdom, moral conduct, and mental discipline, where you can train your mind. That's what the teachings of the Buddha are all about, is training your mind. It's not a bunch of beliefs that you believe a bunch of things and then hope something good happens when you die. He's actually helping you to train your mind and get to the point where you no longer experience any anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All these feelings and others are completely eliminated from the enlightened mind. And what we do to start our class is meditation. So I'll guide you guys in a meditation session. And then afterwards, I'm going to move into a talk on the Eightfold Path in the mental discipline section. There's 3 different steps that I'll be teaching you there. And if you weren't here for part 1 and part 2, it's okay. I'm still going to be kind of helping you along to be able to understand what it is that I'm teaching you today. Nothing I teach is dependent on having learned anything else. So I'm going to help you to be able to understand what I taught in the previous 2 sessions as a little refresh. And then I'm going to teach you the mental discipline section today. So if you'd like to join for meditation, the way that we start is we start with chanting to ease our mind into meditation. These chants that I do, they're on a laminated sheet on the table over there. You're welcome to help yourself and get one, and you're even welcome to chant along if you'd like. They're in the Pali language. When I'm chanting, you'll hear this language that is no longer a spoken language today. And the reason why we chant today is it helps to ease the mind into meditation and actually get more benefit out of the meditation itself. During the lifetime of the Buddha, they chanted as a way to commit the teachings to memory, because everything he taught was oral. Nothing was written down during his lifetime, because the technology to write things down didn't exist in that region of the world. So they used chanting every 2 weeks to be able to commit the teachings to memory, and then they could actually practice the teachings in day-to-day life. Today, we don't need to recite the teachings orally in order to remember them, because we have books and videos and podcasts and things like this that you can learn from the teachings, and this will help you to retain the understanding of the teachings and then be able to actually practice them. These chants, they're not a rite, a ritual, or a ceremony or worship. It's not prayer or anything like that. There's nothing mystical or magical happening with these chants. Again, it's just to help ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. If you look at the English translations on these sheets that you guys have, you'll see that there's a lot of admiration and appreciation, gratitude and respect for the Buddha. And because of that, I don't think the Buddha actually created these chants himself, because a Buddha doesn't walk around and give students chants and say, here, chant this to me in order to show me respect, because he would have eliminated any kind of ego or arrogance, putting himself above people or below people. He wouldn't have done that. But if you learn from a teacher of how to move from the anger and sadness and frustration and all those other discontent feelings to the peace and joy that is the enlightened mind, where the mind is just always peaceful and always joyful. Your mind is in that permanent mental state. And this teacher didn't want anything from you or expect anything from you. You'd probably have a lot of respect and gratitude for that person too. So either during his life or after his death, I suspect people created these chants as a way to honor and respect him for his hard work of sharing the teachings to help people get to this enlightened mental state. So if you'd like to chant along, you're more than welcome. You'll hear me chanting. Then after the chanting, I'm going to come in with some guidance, where I'm going to be guiding you during the meditation, and you'll hear me as we're meditating, kind of guiding you through the meditation and helping you to learn how to meditate. Then there's going to be a period of time where it's just quiet and we're just all meditating together. Everyone here and everyone who's joining us online, we'll just all be meditating together. Then we'll come out of the meditation with some more chanting, and then that's where I'll start the class. There's 4 positions to meditate in. There's seated, lying, standing, and walking. And as you learn in different courses and retreats, you can learn these 4 different positions because you're not going to be able to use just one position for the body every single time that you meditate. You're going to need these other positions for different reasons. But oftentimes people are learning in the seated position. So I'll give you a little bit of guidance on the seated position so you can understand what that's like and kind of some options for you. It's not about everybody sitting in exactly the same way because all of our bodies are different. You're going to need to find what's comfortable for you. But here's a few suggestions for you. If you're on the floor, you might have some cushions under your rear. This will kind of soften your seat. And then you'd like to lightly cross your legs. If you have them too tight, this will impede the circulation and it'll cause pain in the lower body. So you just like your legs lightly crossed. Some people like to put their legs off the mat. This gets their hips up in the air and it allows the circulation, lessening the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles. So it'll allow the circulation to flow in the lower body. The Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. If this is comfortable for you, you could use it. But again, it's not about everybody doing it exactly the same way. You need to find what's comfortable for you with all these different things. So some people like to put their palms on their thighs or their knees, their palms up. Some people rest their hands comfortably in their lap. This is whatever you would like to do, whatever feels comfortable for you. And you don't even need to sit with your legs crossed. If that doesn't feel comfortable for you, you can sit any other way. In fact, we have chairs here. And those of you guys at home, you might be on a sofa or a bench or a wheelchair or something like this. You can just sit with your feet flat on the floor or maybe cross at the ankles. But you can see me, I'm in a chair with my legs crossed. So there's many different options here. And then the same thing with the hands and the arms. You can put them wherever you're comfortable. It's helpful if the upper body is erect with your sternum up and your shoulders back. It helps to keep the mind attentive and alert during the meditation so you can actively eliminate unwholesome qualities in the mind and cultivate certain wholesome qualities. This is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session, and you would like to have your mind attentive and alert so you can actively train your mind during the meditation. So having the sternum up and the shoulders back, not only does it keep the mind attentive and alert, but it makes it easy for you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. So I'm going to ease us in with some chanting, which you guys are welcome to join in on, and then I'll come back in with some guidance. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakeva Wat Tung Mahakavanang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakavata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakhato Rokavitu อนุเตโรปุริสาดามาสติสัตตาตาวามานุสรังโหโตภาควาติ Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, in the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath, not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathe in gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมะคะวะโอตังมหาคะวันหังอภิวาเตมิสวากขาโตมหาคะวะตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาคะวะโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมะคะวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารนังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดัมมาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังพุทโธภาควาติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to everyone. Nice to see all of you guys here. Good morning. Nice to see everyone. Welcome to everyone who's joining us online. Welcome to everyone who joined us since we started meditating. What I'm going to be doing today is sharing with you guys the mental discipline section of the Eightfold Path. The Eightfold Path is the core central teaching of the Buddha, and you would need to know this inside and out, backwards and forwards in order to be able to get to the enlightened mental state. What enlightenment is where you've trained your mind and you've uprooted the pollutions that the Buddha discovered. And by the time you get to enlightenment, you'll be able to see that the mind is peaceful, it's calm, it's serene, it's content, it's joyful. The mind no longer experiences any anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. Even the slightest displeasure is eliminated from the mind. These feelings that you're experiencing, you don't have to experience these. You can opt out of this. You can actually train your mind to no longer experience those feelings. Oftentimes in the unenlightened state, you might think that your anger and your frustration and your annoyance and irritation is being caused by somebody else. But in reality, this is actually being caused by your own mind. And because this is actually being caused by your own mind, you can actually eliminate this from your mind. And what the teachings of the Buddha are for is he's explaining to you what's going on within your mind and what's going on within the world. And you're learning those teachings. You're examining them. You're investigating them. You're not believing his teachings. You're investigating and examining them. Then you're reflecting on those teachings to independently verify whether they're true or they're false. And then you're you're practicing his teachings. You're integrating certain tools and techniques into your life where you're actively training your mind through this wisdom. And now as you're training your mind and you're uprooting pollutions out of your mind, this is where the mind becomes peaceful and joyful. It's kind of like there's the sun and you've got these clouds in front of the sun. And as these clouds start to be peeled away, the rays of the sun start shining through. It's the same thing as you might actually think about it as if your mind is already enlightened, but you've got these pollutions that are in the way, hindering you from being able to experience this mental state. And as you clear away these pollutions, the brightness and the radiance of the enlightened mind will shine through. Not only do you experience the elimination of these discontent feelings, but you'll experience that the mind is focused, it's concentrated, you have clarity of mind, you have a deep memory. Your personal, professional relationships will really be blossoming because you won't be bitter and harsh and hostile in your relationships any longer. You'll notice that you're not even in a bad mood anymore, that the causes and conditions that produce a bad mood have been uprooted and eliminated from the mind. So the mind is actually going to be experiencing this peace and joy, and it's a permanent mental state. Once your mind is in this mental state, it's physically impossible for you to experience anger or frustration or any of these other discontent feelings any longer. So if you're interested in this enlightened mental state, you're going to need to understand the eightfold path, inside and out, backwards and forwards, left, right, up, down. And this is why here at the beginning of the group learning program, I have this 3-part series to be able to help you understand this eightfold path. This eightfold path is organized into 3 sections. There's 8 individual factors. The way you might think about this is that if you had a speaker system and it had 8 dials on this speaker system, there's a problem with the technology, Pat? Oh, I see the camera's off. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that. The way that you can think about this eightfold path is that if you had a speaker system and you were interested in getting a better and better quality sound out of the speakers, you might tweak these 8 dials and get a better and better quality sound out of the speakers. Well, your mind is essentially the same way, that there's these 8 individual factors that when you dial these into your life and you kind of tweak them, that this is going to produce a better and better quality performing mind. And through learning these teachings inside and out, using the words of the Buddha and then integrating them into your life, you'll be able to train your mind to be able to experience this peace and joy of the enlightened mental state. What I've taught so far in part 1, in part 2, is I've taught the wisdom section and I taught the moral conduct section. And just a little bit of a refresh, and just to kind of help you guys that haven't learned that, you're going to need to go back and learn this. But what Right View is teaching you is this is what's called the 4 Noble Truths. The Buddha explains in 4 simple statements what is the problem in your mind, the cause of that problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. The problem in the mind that he discovered is that the mind experiences conditional feelings, that based on some condition, you will then experience pleasant feelings, painful feelings, or feelings that are neither painful nor pleasant. So for example, if you wake up and you see it's sunny outside, based on that condition, you might get happy. But the problem with that is that sun is not permanent. So that means if you base your feeling of happiness on the sun, because it's not permanent, your happiness is not permanent either. It's only conditional. So as soon as the sun goes away, now it's raining, you'll be frustrated or agitated or annoyed. Or if you base your inner feelings on your bank account, and when your bank account's here, you get so happy, when it goes down here, you'll be sad or frustrated. These are called conditional feelings. Maybe if your mom or dad do this, you're happy. But if they do this, you get sad or frustrated. These are called conditional feelings or discontentedness. This is the problem that the Buddha discovered in the mind, that essentially the unenlightened mind is going up and down, up and down, up and down. At different points in your day, you're going to experience these conditional feelings. It's only a matter of time before you get annoyed or frustrated about something, because the mind is basing its inner feelings on some condition. In the second noble truth, the Buddha explains the cause of this discontentedness is craving, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning, the chasing after the objects of your affection. That essentially, if the mind gets what it wants, you get happy, you get excited, you get elated. But if you don't get what you want, you get angry, you get frustrated, you get sad. Now remember, these teachings aren't to be believed. You need to independently verify them. So when I'm teaching you this, you don't believe what I'm saying. You look in your own life to be able to see whether this is true or false. Look at a recent situation where you've been angry, you've been frustrated, you've been sad. If there's a situation, maybe this morning, maybe yesterday, you were irritated or annoyed, maybe last week, look at that situation. There was something that your mind wanted. And if you would have got what you wanted, you would have been happy or excited. But because your mind didn't get what it wanted, you got frustrated or annoyed or agitated. This is what the mind is experiencing. And when you're experiencing those painful feelings, because the mind lacks wisdom that your mind is actually causing it itself, what you'll tend to do is you'll tend to push people away, or you'll push the situation away. This is called aversion, where you think you're solving your problem by pushing people away, or you're pushing the situation away. But you can see it doesn't solve the problem because you still get annoyed. You still get frustrated. It's only a matter of time. Or you might be bitter and harsh and hostile with people through your intentions, your speech, or your actions. Maybe like an animal kind of growling and roaring at another animal, trying to convince this person to do things your way through fear, right? The mind thinks if I'm bitter and harsh and hostile, they deserve it because they're the ones who are making me angry. And now you might be arguing with them. And then you might even put your expectations on people, trying to control people to do things your way. This is what the mind does when it lacks wisdom of what the true cause of your discontent feelings are. That if you firmly believe that other people are causing you to be angry and frustrated, you'll push them away, you'll be bitter, harsh, and hostile with them, or you'll put your expectations on them and try to control them. And in this situation, you can't live with all beings harmoniously because there are certain people that you just can't be around because they're not doing things your way. And if you can only be happy when people do things your way, then you can only be happy with yourself because you're the only person in the world that's going to do things exactly your way. Other people are going to do things different ways. So this is the second noble truth, that the mind is causing its own discontentedness because of its craving, its desire, its attachment, its longing, its yearning. And everything in the world around you is impermanent. So as long as you're craving permanence, you're going to keep experiencing these discontent feelings over and over again. If you think back to that relationship when you were with that boyfriend or girlfriend, when you guys first got together, you had all those pleasant feelings. But then when you guys broke up, you experienced the anger or the frustration, or maybe you were lonely or bored, or maybe you were missing this person. This is because the mind's holding on. It's craving permanence. It's wanting things in the world to be permanent, when in reality, everything around you is impermanent. This is a universal truth, that everything around you is impermanent. Then the third noble truth is explaining that the elimination of discontentedness is possible by eliminating craving, desire, attachment. If you eliminate craving, desire, attachment, you can eliminate your discontentedness. Because your mind is causing these feelings, you can actually eliminate them. What you might be trying to do is you might be trying to teach other people to do things your way. This is what the mind tends to do. In your day-to-day life, you might be going around trying to teach your friends or family how to do things your way. And it's just not possible. They're not going to do things your way. Or the third noble truth, this is helping you to understand that you need to eliminate these discontent feelings, and there's certain training that you can do in order to eliminate these discontent feelings. And that's what the Buddha teaches you in the fourth noble truth. The fourth noble truth, he explains that the eightfold path is the way to eliminate your cravings, desires, attachments. That's the complete perfect plan that's going to lead to the elimination of your discontentedness. So in 4 simple statements, he explains the problem, the cause of the problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. And it normally takes me a good 45 minutes to teach that particular step, but here I just kind of recapped it in about 5 or 10 minutes. So you're going to need to go back and actually see that if you haven't learned that yet, because you can have a real breakthrough to finally understanding what's causing these feelings so that you can actually eliminate them. If you didn't understand what was causing these feelings, you wouldn't actually be able to eliminate them. Then he builds on top of that right intention. Right intention is explaining to you that you need to have 3 things in the mind. This is your intentions or your thinking or your thoughts. You need to have the intention of renunciation, the willingness to let go and give up your unwholesomeness, to give up your false beliefs. You need to have the intention of non-ill will, or where you have a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. And you need to have the intention of harmlessness, where you're disinterested in causing harm to other beings. Renunciation is giving up your false beliefs and your unwholesomeness. One of the first false beliefs you need to eliminate is the belief that other people are causing you to be angry. If you continue to hold on to this belief, you will never get to enlightenment, because it's not other people that are causing you to be angry. So you're not getting rid of your false beliefs and bringing in new beliefs. That's not what the teachings of the Buddha are. You're actually bringing in wisdom, because the teachings of the Buddha, you can independently verify that they're true. And when you get this wisdom that's coming into the mind, you can see like, whoa, I've been believing this all my life. And now you get rid of that, and you now have the wisdom to know the truth. That by the time you get to enlightenment, you actually don't have any beliefs whatsoever. You will have shattered all those beliefs, and you will now know the truth about how your mind functions and about how the world functions around you. And this is why you'll experience peace and joy. Because when you're angry or sad or frustrated or these other discontent feelings, this is because the mind is living in a world that it doesn't understand. It's struggling and it's having difficulties in the world. That's why you're angry, or that's why you're stressed. That's why you have anxiety, because there's certain wisdom about the world that you just don't understand. So as long as you hold on to your false beliefs, you're never going to gain wisdom to be able to then bring in this new wisdom to be able to now navigate the world through these natural laws. So that's why the intention or the thinking or the thought of renunciation is so important, that you don't hold on to the things that you currently think about the world. But when you see this wisdom and you can independently verify it, and it conflicts with these things that you've been doing or things that you've been believing throughout your life, you get rid of those things. That's what renunciation means. And then that non-ill will is having goodwill or active goodwill, or this genuine interest in seeing all beings be well, this loving kindness. And then the harmlessness. The intention of harmlessness is being incapable or disinterested in causing harm to other beings. Because when you cause harm to others, this harm is just going to come back to you. So this forms the wisdom section of the Eightfold Path, and there's plenty to study here. That's why I spent an entire class period before explaining that to students. Then we moved into the moral conduct section last week on Sunday. The Buddha teaches this moral conduct because as long as you're out in the world using speech or actions, or if you have a certain livelihood, the way that you sustain your life, if you're harming other beings through these things, this is going to cause problems in your day-to-day life. That if you're speaking in ways that are unwise, if you're using bodily actions that are harmful, if you're harming people through the way you sustain your life, this harm is all going to come back to you. So the Buddha doesn't teach rules and commandments. He's not trying to force you or convince you to do anything. He's not explaining to you the way the world should be, and that if everybody follows these rules, then the world will become a peaceful place. He's explaining to you the way the world is. And based on the way that the world is, if you speak in the way that he teaches, you will see that it'll produce wholesome results for you, that your relationships will become more and more harmonious. So for example, in right speech, or we might think about it as right communication, because nowadays we have emails and voice messages, social media, and all these different ways to communicate. We might think of it as right communication. He teaches to eliminate lying, to eliminate slander or gossip, to eliminate harsh speech. This is like your tone, your tempo, and your word choice, and to eliminate frivolous speech or idle chatter or unpurposeful, unbeneficial speech, because you would like to speak in ways that isn't causing harm. So as long as you're lying and you're gossiping and slandering, you're having harsh, bitter speech, or you're speaking frivolously, like just yada, 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 you're not really having a conversation, you're kind of more broadcasting to people. As long as you're doing this, people aren't going to really pay attention to you. They're not going to take you seriously. You're going to see that your personal and professional relationships are going to struggle. He even goes into more detail in the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. He teaches you to speak at the proper time, what you say is true, that it's gentle, that it's beneficial, and that it's with a mind of loving kindness. You're going to need to pay attention to your tone, your tempo, and your word choice, and making sure that it's the right time to speak. When you're angry and you're frustrated, this isn't the right time to speak. You're just going to be damaging your reputations when you're doing that. Or if the other person is angry or frustrated, it's not the proper time to speak. It's better to go away, calm down, and then come back together when you guys are both calm, and now you can sort out whatever the challenge is. But you're not interested in putting your expectations on the other person, because the reason why you're angry or frustrated isn't because of what the other person's doing. It's because of your mind craving for them to do things a certain way. And when they don't do it your way, you get angry or frustrated. You'll never solve your problem by getting the people around you to do things your way. Because there's 8 billion people in the world, you can't train 8 billion people to do things your way. But you can train your mind to speak in ways that are loving and kind. And when you're speaking this way, you'll notice that the mind is experiencing more and more improvement in your relationships. So speaking at the proper time, what you say is true, gentle, beneficial, and with a mind of loving kindness ensures that you wrap your speech into this warmth. That's that loving kindness coming through in your speech. And you pay attention to your tone, your tempo, and your word choice, ensuring that you're polite, kind, friendly, and respectful in all situations. Because when you put out bitterness and hostility, this is all going to just come back to you in your relationships. So you probably have certain relationships right now that you're struggling in. And this is where the mental discipline section is going to ultimately come into play, because without the mental discipline section, you wouldn't be able to practice right speech. Because with your parents, with your siblings, with your life partners, with your children, your coworkers, people that you're really close to, you'll find it challenging to speak wisely, that you might be harsh in certain situations. And if that's where you are now, it's okay. We've all been there. But what you're doing on the path to enlightenment is you're looking to improve and become this better and better human being. That's what the Buddha is teaching you, is to evolve past these animalistic instincts and move towards becoming a better and better human being, cultivating wisdom and training your mind to practice wisely based on these natural laws. And you can independently verify the right speech that the Buddha is sharing with you, because you can see certain conversations that have not gone well and certain conversations that have gone well. And you can see that when you don't use the 5 factors of well-spoken speech, your conversations don't go well. He teaches you about right action, ensuring that you're not causing harm through your bodily actions. Because if you're causing harm through your bodily actions, this harm is going to come back to you. So if you took your suitcase and rolled it through the aisle of the plane and you were running over people's feet and bumping into their knees, it's going to produce unwholesome results, right? People are going to get angry and frustrated with you, right? Because you're not paying attention to what you're doing and you're bumping into people and you're haphazardly walking through the airplane. Or if you walked up to someone and punched them in the face, they're probably going to punch you back, right? This is the unwholesome results of your unwise decision. They might pull out a knife or a gun, or their friends or their family might attack you. So the Buddha gives you guidance, ensuring that you're understanding how to not cause harm through your bodily actions. He talks about killing and stealing and sexual misconduct, because whenever you're doing these kinds of things, harm will come back to you. But he doesn't give you a comprehensive list, because you need to have the wisdom to apply this in all situations. Like right now, you're just sitting there peacefully. You're not poking the person next to you in the eye, right? Because if you did that, that would be unwise. That would be wrong action, right? So he's teaching you not to cause harm through your bodily actions. Then he teaches you right livelihood, that to ensure that you're not causing harm through your livelihood, he gives you 5 livelihoods that he shares is going to cause harm in your life. That if you sold weapons, if you had business in living beings, business in meat, business in substances that cause heedlessness, which is like intoxicants, if you had business in poisons, all of these businesses are meant to cause harm to other beings. Weapons, living beings, meat, substances that cause heedlessness, and poisons. And you can look at these 5 livelihoods and you can see if you've done these, it's caused harm and now you've experienced harm as a result. Or you might look in the world and you see other people doing these things and you can see like, wow, look at what they did and this is causing harm and now harm is coming to that person. And then he even teaches you how to perform a livelihood so that you can actually have success in your professional career. He teaches you to not have scheming or corruption, to not be flattering, like having insincere comments towards other people just to get them to buy things from you, to not have hinting, which is like being unclear in your job. You would like to be very clear and concise when you're communicating with the people in your profession. He teaches you to eliminate belittling. We are not degrading and diminishing other people, including your competition. Sometimes people, if they're in business, they feel like the way to make their business look better is to degrade and diminish other businesses. That maybe is their competition. And customers will tend to turn away from this. When you are experiencing the belittling and you're talking in that way, you'll see that your customers will turn away from you. And then he teaches you to not pursue gain with gain. What gain with gain is where you're just out for the money, and that's all you care about. You don't really care about the product or the service. You just want the money, and that's it. Because if you just chase money, that you're eventually not going to be fulfilled and satisfied in that livelihood. What the Buddha is guiding you to do with the right livelihood is get to the point where you have ambition and motivation and enthusiasm behind your livelihood, that you don't drag yourself to work every day. Because if you're dragging yourself to work every day, you're not going to be able to get to a peaceful and joyful life and a peaceful and joyful mind. So by the time you get to a right livelihood, you will thoroughly enjoy the work that you do every day. You can't imagine doing anything different than what it is that you're actually doing. In fact, if you had to do that thing for free and you wouldn't actually get paid for it, you'd be willing to do that because you just enjoy that work so much, right? Of course, you need money. You need to have an income in order to sustain your life. But ultimately, you can get to a livelihood where you thoroughly enjoy the work that you do. If you don't like the work that you do, if you drag yourself to work every day, you don't like the company, you don't like the coworkers, that you're having difficulties just getting to work each day, it's going to feel like a drag in your life. You're going to feel like you're in a dead-end job. So there's ways for you to train your mind and select a company or a business, or maybe open your own business where you thoroughly enjoy what you're doing and you have ambition and motivation. But you're going to need to understand more about this step and all the other steps in order to get to that point where you can be peaceful and joyful in your livelihood each day, in the way that you sustain your life and that you're not causing harm to others. So this is a little bit of a refresh of what I've taught in wisdom and moral conduct section. And I've spent an entire class period on each one of these sections. But now we're going to go into the mental discipline section, because that's what's going to help you to be able to implement all these other things. And again, I advise you to go back. You can see the recordings, you can read the book, you can listen to the audiobook, and you can learn each one of these factors in detail, because this is what you're going to need in order to be able to really fully train the mind to get to this enlightened mental state. But now we're going to talk about the mental discipline section, starting with right effort. This is where you're going to learn how to control your mind, because in order to speak with gentleness, you're going to need to know how to control your mind. So this is where the Buddha teaches you how to control your mind. And I'm going to go through each one of these factors, and I'm going to use the words of the Buddha, and then I'm going to help you to be able to understand how to practice it so that you can integrate it into your life on a day-to-day basis. So this step is called right effort. This is the 6th step on the Eightfold Path. And here's the words of the Buddha on this step. He says, "In what, monks, is right effort? Here, monks, a monk rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to prevent the arising of unarisen, evil, unwholesome mental states. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to overcome evil, unwholesome mental states that have arisen. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to produce unarisen, wholesome mental states. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to maintain wholesome mental states that have arisen, not to let them fade away, to bring them to greater growth, to the full perfection of development. This is called right effort." So the Buddha is talking about 4 things here. He's talking about 4 things that you need to do in order to apply this effort to transform the mind. The transformation of your mind and getting to enlightenment is not just going to happen by itself. You need to take the effort to actually do the work to train your actual mind. Nobody can train your mind for you. You need to actually do the work yourself. And that's what right effort is all about, is doing this work to eliminate certain unwholesome qualities and cultivate certain wholesome qualities in the mind, right? So here are the 4 different things that he was talking about. And now I'm going to give you examples so you can see how to implement this in your day-to-day life. The first thing that he's talking about is preventing unwholesome mental states that have not arisen from arising in the mind. So there's certain unwholesome things that are not currently in your mind. They might be really far from your mind. And what the Buddha is saying is you're going to need to apply the effort to prevent these things from ever coming into your mind. So an example of that is probably killing another human being. You probably have no interest in killing another human being. That's like the farthest thing from your mind. You're smiling. Maybe you have a different thought, Diego, right? Maybe that's the farthest thing from your mind, right? Is killing another human being. And what the Buddha is teaching is to apply right effort to prevent this from ever coming into your mind. And there's other unwholesome things that are not currently in your mind right now. This is just one example that I know applies to everybody, right? Is that you're not interested in killing a human being. So the Buddha is saying, apply the right effort to prevent that from ever coming into the mind, right? And there's other things too that you might not have in your mind right now. So prevent those from ever coming into your mind. The second one is abandon unwholesome mental states that have arisen in the mind. There are certain unwholesome mental states that you have in your mind right now, right? And what the Buddha is saying is apply effort to eliminate those out of the mind. An example might be if somebody's in an existing relationship and they have a craving for sex outside of that relationship. That's going to cause harm because you're in this committed relationship with your partner. And now if you go outside and start having sex with others, you can have sexually transmitted diseases. You can get in fights. You can get beat up. You can potentially even get murdered in these situations. Some people have gotten murdered for these kinds of things. So if you allow that unwholesome mental state to come into your mind and then you act upon it, now you're going to experience unwholesome results. So what the Buddha is teaching you as part of the second aspect of right effort is when you see that unwholesome mental state coming into your mind, apply the effort to cut that off and abandon it and get it out of the mind. Another example might be anger or frustration or irritation or any other unwholesome quality like this, that when you see that coming into your mind, you apply the effort to cut that off and let it go and eliminate it out of the mind, right? So this is to abandon any unwholesome qualities that are in the mind. Get rid of those out of your mind. The third one is produce unarisen wholesome mental states to arise in the mind. There are certain wholesome qualities that you're going to need to cultivate in your mind in order to get to enlightenment that are not currently in your mind. You're going to need to bring those wholesome qualities into your mind. And this is how you're going to transform the mind, is by bringing in these wholesome qualities. So an example might be like generosity. You might find that you're not a very generous person. Maybe you find it very difficult to share, but you're going to learn about the path to enlightenment that you're going to need to practice generosity, because this is going to train your mind to let go. Right? The whole problem that the mind is experiencing is craving, desire, attachment. It's holding on. It's craving permanence. The mind doesn't want to let go. That's what you learn in right view as part of the Four Noble Truths. So generosity is training your mind to let go, where you're giving and sharing more than is strictly required in any given situation without any expectation of anything in return. Not even a thank you, right? So when you're going into a store and you look behind you and somebody's coming in, you could hold the door for them, right? This would be generosity. This would be sharing your time, effort, energy, and resources without any expectation of anything in return. But if you're standing there with an expectation that they will say thank you and they don't say thank you, you'll be frustrated. You'll be agitated or annoyed because you're not getting what you want, right? The mind wants everybody to say thank you. When you live in an impermanent world, not everyone's going to say thank you. It's just not possible, right? But if you stand there with the expectation of someone to say thank you, you'll be frustrated. And that's not pure generosity. What you'd like to get to is pure generosity, where you have no expectation of anything in return. And this is going to help your mind to let go. So if you know that you have a difficult time practicing generosity, where you're sharing your time, effort, energy, and resources, you're going to need to apply the effort to bring that into your mind so that now you can practice living open-handedly, being joyful and letting go, right? Then you might need to practice compassion. What compassion is where you have concern for the misfortune of others. The opposite of this would be if you're craving, desiring, attached, if you're longing, yearning, and you're worried and having anxiety about the world, and you're worried about every little thing that's happening in the world, that's not compassion. But also, if you're on the other side of this, where you're maybe indifferent and you could care less about the struggles and the suffering of the world, that's not the middle way. The Buddha is teaching you the middle way. Compassion is where you have concern for the misfortune of others. It doesn't mean that you necessarily have actions behind it. That's where the generosity comes in. But compassion is where you have the mental state that you have concern for the misfortune of others. Where if you were worried and having anxiety about the world, you're not going to get to peacefulness there because you're worried about every little thing that happens in the world. But also if you're on the other side where you could care less about what happens in the world and the struggles and difficulties that people face, you're not going to get to enlightenment there either. So this middle way of compassion where you have concern for others' misfortune, but you understand in order for them to be well, they have to make certain decisions, then you can make your way towards enlightenment because you're now practicing this middle way. And in some cases, you might put action into your compassion, but not always. But you can always have the mental state of having concern for others' misfortune. So you might need to bring this into your mind. If you're noticing that your mind's pretty indifferent and you could care less about people's suffering, or if you're noticing that you're worried or having anxiety about certain things that happen in the world, you're going to need to apply the effort to bring your mind to the middle with something like compassion, where you can have concern for the misfortune of others. Then there's the fourth one, which is maintain wholesome mental states that have arisen, not allowing them to fade away, and work to increase their growth in the mind. What this is there's certain wholesome qualities that you have in your mind right now that need to be brought to full growth and full perfection. It needs to apply the right effort to be able to bring those qualities up in the mind so that they're permeating in the mind. So for example, loving kindness. You probably have loving kindness in your mind where you have a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well, but it's not fully developed yet. Because in some situations, you're angry and you're bitter and you're harsh to people. In some situations, maybe you're loving and kind. In other situations, maybe you're bitter, harsh, or hostile towards people. Maybe you're irritated or annoyed with them. This is because the loving kindness hasn't been brought to full growth and full perfection and full development, where it's permeating in the mind and you can have love and kindness for all beings. By the time you get to enlightenment, you will have love and kindness for all beings. You won't even have the slightest dislike towards another being. When your mind's angry or you have dislike towards others, this is because they're not meeting your expectations. You have certain expectations, certain things you want from this person. You might want them to speak a certain way. You might want them to look a certain way. You might want them to do certain actions. And when they do things your way, you're happy. Hey, I like this person. They do things my way. But when they don't do things your way, then you get angry or frustrated or agitated or annoyed, or maybe you just dislike them, right? This is what the mind does based on its expectations, its wants, its cravings, its desires. And again, you don't have to feel like a bad person. Every unenlightened being experiences this. But once you know about it and you understand what's going on in the mind, now you can transform it. That's what the Buddha is teaching you, is understanding the problem, but then understand the solution too, that there's a solution for you to transform this so you can get to the peace and the joy of the enlightened mind. So if you're noticing that in some situations you're loving and kind, in other situations you're angry and frustrated and irritated and annoyed with people, this is because your loving kindness hasn't been brought to full growth and full perfection of development. So what you're going to need to do is apply the right effort to bring that loving kindness up in the mind more and more and more. Another example might be sympathetic joy. This is the opposite of jealousy and envy. Sympathetic joy is where you have the joy for others' success, even if you didn't contribute to it. So maybe you have sympathetic joy. Maybe someone's like, hey, I'm going to Thailand next year. And you're like, oh, that's wonderful. I went to Thailand. That was so fun. There was all this good food and nice people. You're going to have a great time, right? Maybe you have joy for their success, right? You didn't contribute to it, but you have joy for it, right? But then maybe you're at work and you and a coworker are applying for a promotion and they get the job instead of you. They get an increased salary, they get a new title, and you don't. And now maybe you're jealous. Maybe you're envious of that person. That's because your sympathetic joy hasn't been brought to full growth and full development and full perfection. It's not permeating in the mind. By the time you get to enlightenment, that sympathetic joy will be permeating in the mind. And even in that situation, you can have joy for them. You don't feel jealous and you don't feel envious. But because your mind didn't get what you wanted, that's where the jealousy and envy is arising. right? This mind is causing its own discontent feelings. But when you get rid of your cravings, desires, attachments through applying right effort and all these other teachings, you'll be able to be peaceful and joyful in all situations. You won't be jealous and envious in that situation because that doesn't feel good to have that, right? So the Buddha is giving you the solutions here. So where you see your mind is deficient in any of these qualities, and maybe it hasn't been brought to full growth and full perfection, you apply the effort to bring those wholesome qualities up in the mind so that they're permeating and the mind's filled up with these qualities. And these are just examples that I came up with to be able to help illustrate right effort. What things are unwholesome that aren't in your mind or are in your mind? The things that are wholesome that you need to bring into the mind or need to permeate in the mind, that's going to be unique to you. That's where the next step is going to come in, that you're going to need this next step that I'm going to teach you in order to apply this step. But at least you have some examples here, because what the Buddha is teaching you in right effort is 4 things. The first one is to prevent unwholesome qualities from coming into the mind. The second one is any unwholesome qualities that are currently in your mind, to eliminate those out of the mind. Any wholesome qualities that are not currently in your mind, apply the effort to bring those into the mind. Any wholesome qualities that are currently in your mind, support those, encourage those, don't allow them to fade away. So this is right effort. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pause and see what questions you guys have. I'm going to do this with each one of the steps. If you guys would like to ask questions here at the temple, we have microphones in the white bowl here. Just come get a microphone, press the gray button, the lights will come on. You can hold it up to your chin and then ask any question that you like. And you can take these microphones back to your seat with you because you or somebody else might have some more questions around you. If you speak here, we'll be able to hear you with the microphone, but they'll also be able to hear you online. If you don't use a microphone, people online won't be able to hear you. And for those of you guys online, if you're either in Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, you can put your questions into the comment section. Or if you're in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand and ask any and all questions that you like. So is there anybody here online that has questions about this step? No questions? Okay. Let me see if we have anything online here. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions anywhere. Okay, so we'll go to the next one. As I mentioned, you wouldn't be able to practice right effort without this next step. You need this next one. And you also need the 8th one, right concentration, to practice these 2. These are all working together. You're not mastering one before you move on to the next. You're actually practicing all of them at the same time. Okay, so without this next one, you wouldn't be able to practice right effort. The next one is called right mindfulness. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to read the words of the Buddha, and then I'm going to teach it to you so you understand how to practice it. So here's what the Buddha says about right mindfulness. In what, monks, is right mindfulness? Here, monks, a monk resides, reflecting on body as body, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. He resides, reflecting on feelings as feelings, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. He resides reflecting on mind as mind, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. He resides reflecting on mental objects as mental objects, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. This is called right mindfulness. So again, he's talking about 4 things. He's talking about what's called the 4 foundations of mindfulness. But before we talk about that, let's just talk about mindfulness in general. What you might decide to do is just think about mindfulness as awareness of mind. This is a good place to start, because in the unenlightened state, we tend to not have awareness of our mind. We tend to not be aware of our thoughts and our ideas and different things that are going on in the mind. You need to be aware of what's going on in your mind. This is a way to think about mindfulness in general. Now, this word mindfulness has made its way into common language and modern language, and people use this word quite a bit in day-to-day life, but they're not necessarily using it in the same way that the Buddha used it. They might say, can you mindfully carry this glass of water to the table? What they're really saying is, can you carefully carry this glass of water to the table? They just replace the word careful with mindful. This isn't the way that the Buddha used this word mindful. The word mindful means awareness of mind, where you have awareness of what's going on in your mind. Because in day-to-day life, we pretty much in the unenlightened state, we don't have awareness of our mind. We just kind of plow through the world, knocking down trees, burning up the forest, right? So you need to have awareness of your mind, because if you're going to apply right effort to eliminate unwholesome qualities and cultivate wholesome qualities, you're going to need to know what is going on in your mind. If you don't have awareness of mind, you're not going to be able to purify your mind. So you need to cultivate this awareness of mind. And the next step is going to teach you how to actually cultivate this mindfulness or awareness of mind. But more specifically, what the Buddha is talking about in right mindfulness is what's called the 4 foundations of mindfulness. These are the 4 things that you need to be aware of that is going on within the mind and within the body. Okay? So here, the Buddha is teaching about body as body, feelings as feelings, mind as mind, mental objects as mental objects. What he's talking about with body as body is you need to have awareness of these bodily sensations that are occurring before you get angry, before you get frustrated, before you get agitated, before you get annoyed. There's going to be some bodily sensation that you may or may not even be aware of right now. For anger, for example, you might notice tightening in the chest, tingling in the body. You might notice tightening in the throat, heat in the face. You might notice pressure in the skull. This is like an early warning system. It's alerting you. Hey, you're about to get angry. You're about to get frustrated. You're about to get irritated or annoyed. This is an early warning system. And if you're aware of these bodily sensations, you can cut it off and let it go. Let me snap my fingers. Cut it off and let it go, right? You can cut that off and let it go. Don't allow the mind to experience that anger, right? If you allow the mind to experience the anger, the mind's going to stay wired to continue to experience the anger. But if you can clue in to this early warning system and these bodily sensations are like, hey, I'm about to get angry. I'm about to get angry. I'm about to get angry. And you're like, nope, not going to let you do that. You apply right effort and you cut that off and let it go. Over time, you'll rewire your mind where your mind will no longer experience anger, right? You're not suppressing your feelings. Sometimes people think that when I'm talking about this, you're not suppressing it. You're actually cutting it off before it even becomes a feeling, right? So that's what that early warning system is there for. And not only do you have this early warning system related to painful feelings, but even the pleasant ones, like the happiness and excitement and elation, you might not see those as a problem right now, but these conditional pleasant feelings are actually a problem. Because if you allow your mind to experience the conditional pleasant feelings, the painful ones are waiting right around the corner. So for example, if you get so happy and excited with that brand new job that you just got, and you get so excited, it's the best salary, the best title, the best location, the best company, you're so happy. Well, 3 years later, when they go out of business and they have to fire you and lay you off, you'll be frustrated. You'll be annoyed because you got happy based on the condition of this new job, that when that condition changes, your mind's going to end up in the anger or the frustration. So by the time you get to enlightenment, you're experiencing unconditional happiness, unconditional joy, where your mind's always happy. It's always joyful, but it's unconditional, that there's no condition that's causing it. Right now, you're very familiar with conditional pleasant feelings. You get happy maybe when it's sunny outside, or you get happy when your bank account is here, or if your boss does this, you get happy, or if your mom does this, you get happy, or if your dad does this, you get happy. But then when they do this over here, you get angry, you get frustrated. That's called conditional feelings. That if you base your inner feelings based on this condition, then when that condition changes, and it will change because the world is impermanent, your mind's going to end up in these painful feelings. So as long as your mind is allowed to have conditional pleasant feelings, you're going to get the painful ones right afterwards at some point. And sometimes they're spread apart so far, you don't even realize what's happening. And that's what a Buddha does, is they figure this out, help you to understand it so that then you can actually transform your mind. So as long as you hold on to the temporary pleasant feelings, you'll never get to the permanent pleasure, the permanent happiness, the permanent joy, which is unconditioned. So when you're noticing the bodily sensations, even with these pleasant feelings, it could be tingling across the shoulders, up the back of the neck, maybe over the skull. We might call these warm fuzzies. That's what they call it in the USA. I don't know, maybe other countries call it something else. But if you have these warm fuzzies coming across your shoulders and up the back of your head, you might indulge in that. And you're like, oh, that feels so good. Yeah, but you're not going to be aware that in a few hours or a few days or a few weeks, you're going to feel painful feelings because you allowed your mind to get that pleasant feeling that now when that condition changes, your pleasantness is going to be gone. So if you get so happy and excited with that new boyfriend or girlfriend, when you guys break up, you'll be sad. You'll be angry. You get so happy with that brand new car. Well, when it gets a scratch on it, you'll get frustrated and get angry, right? You get so happy with that brand new friend. Well, when they go away, you'll feel miserable and sad, right? So this is what the mind's experiencing. So you need to be able to observe these early warning system of the bodily sensations that the mind is saying, I'm about to get a conditioned feeling. I'm about to get a conditioned feeling. I'm about to get a conditioned feeling. And when you notice those bodily sensations, you apply right effort and you say, nope, not going to let you do that. Because if you don't, then what happens is you experience the feeling, right? The feeling is the pleasant feelings. Painful feelings are neither painful nor pleasant. These are conditional feelings. And this is the problem. And now when your mind's experiencing that conditioned feeling, your mind's going to stay wired that way to form its inner feelings on some condition, right? On some external thing. And now, if you allow that to occur, now your mind's going to be affected, the condition of your mind, right? That you're going to be angry or grumpy or irritable for a few hours, a few days, a week or two. Have you ever been agitated for a week or two? Of course you have, right? We all have at some point in our life. This is because you weren't aware of the 4 foundations of mindfulness, that you had some craving, desire, attachment. There was some longing, yearning, and then you experienced some contact through your eyes, your ears, your nose, your tongue, your body, or your mind. And now when you experience this contact, you saw it as either agreeable or disagreeable. And if it was agreeable, you got pleasant feelings. And if it was disagreeable to you, you got painful feelings. And when those feelings arose, you didn't know about the bodily sensations and cut it off and let it go there. And then it became a feeling. And then you didn't know about it there because you can cut it off as a feeling too. It's ideal to cut it off as a bodily sensation, but if you missed it there, you can cut it off as a feeling. But since you didn't cut it off as a feeling, then it affects the condition of your mind. So that's why for a few hours, for a day or two or a week or so, you were agitated or grumpy or irritable. Right? And this is where you can independently verify what I'm sharing with you is true, because this is what you experience. And then if you don't cut it off as a condition of your mind, it's going to form what's called a mental object. What a mental object is this is a deeply rooted container in the mind that is going to motivate unskillful conduct. So for example, ill will. Ill will is a deeply rooted container in the mind. We weren't born with ill will. We weren't born with that mental object. We formed this over time. When we came out of our mom, we didn't have anger and hatred and ill will. We didn't go into the nursery at the hospital hating other babies, right? This is why as a child, we're like, everything's so joyful, because our mind's fairly pure as a child, right? But we had cravings, we had desires, we had things that we were longing for, we wanted and we expected. We wanted chocolate, we wanted ice cream, we wanted candy, and we begged and pleaded with our parents to give us this chocolate and candy. And in some situations, they gave it to us. And man, it was such a good day. If we got ice cream, or maybe even 2 or 3 times a day we got ice cream, it was a wonderful day, right? We were so happy. But then somewhere along the lines, we were like, Mommy, Daddy, buy me ice cream, buy me chocolate. They said, no, I'm not going to buy that for you. You're the worst mommy and daddy ever, right? We got angry because our cravings weren't getting fulfilled. We wanted this chocolate and candy, and if we would have got it, we would have been happy. But because we didn't get it, we were angry and frustrated. And we attributed those feelings to our parents. We thought that they were the ones who were causing us to be angry. And we didn't notice the bodily sensations. We didn't know because we didn't have enough wisdom. We experienced the feeling of frustration and anger, and then it affected the condition of our mind for a few minutes, a few hours, or however long it affected us. And then it formed this mental object of ill will in the mind, this deeply rooted container. Like right now, you're not angry. You're just sitting here listening to me. But if somebody did something that triggers one of your cravings, that anger is going to arise. So you're going to ultimately need to have awareness of these mental objects. There's multiple in your mind. The Buddha teaches you about 10 fetters or 10 pollutions, these mental objects that are deeply rooted containers in the mind that you need to be able to see the symptoms of them, and you need to know how to eliminate them. So ill will is one of them. Conceit is one. This is like arrogance and pride, boastfulness, where you're maybe putting yourself above people or below people. You're judging other people, kind of looking at them to kind of compare where you are, kind of like wanting a pecking order of who's above me and who's below me. This is called conceit, right? And there's others as well. So I'm not going to go into all of the mental objects, but this is something that you're going to need to have awareness of these 10 mental objects, these 10 fetters, so that you can purify the mind. And that's something that I'm going to be teaching in a course that's going to be starting in about a week from now. I have a course called Experiencing the Jhanas and the 4 Stages of Enlightenment, and you can attend here, you can attend online. I'm going to be teaching some of these fetters. And then there's various retreats and other courses that I go into these as well. But essentially today I'm teaching you about right mindfulness. This is where you need to have awareness of the bodily sensations, the feelings, the condition of the mind, and the mental objects. General awareness, but more specifically, the 4 foundations of mindfulness. And this is something that you develop over time. It takes time to build awareness of these things. And even though I'm teaching this to you now, and you might understand it to a certain degree, you're not going to be able to perfect this in one day. Right? Your mind is going to get angry between now and enlightenment. You are going to get angry. You are going to get frustrated. But what the Buddha is teaching you is to become aware of that sooner and sooner and sooner as a bodily sensation, and then cut it off and let it go. Easier and easier and easier. Apply that right effort to cut off that anger. Understand that your anger is not being caused by somebody else. It's not being caused by anything external. It's being caused by your own mind. And that's why you can cut it off and you can eliminate it. You don't have to allow your mind to do that. If you allow the mind to dwell in that anger, it's just going to stay wired that way. So if you can catch it as a bodily sensation, boom, you just saved yourself a whole lot of trouble. It's kind of like if you were going to take a boat from Australia to Indonesia and you're out in the middle of the water, you'd like to prevent this water from ever coming into the boat, because then you saved yourself a whole lot of trouble. Once the water comes into the boat, you've got a real problem to deal with. So if you can catch these feelings as a bodily sensation, boom, not going to let you do that. You've just prevented all this anger and frustration from coming into the mind. Hey, you can keep sailing in your day and you can feel really great because your mind's not experiencing that anger. But if it does become a feeling, try to cut it off there too. The way that this looks in day-to-day life is, say you're sitting there watching the news and you're noticing this frustration, you're noticing this irritation, you're noticing the tingling in the body starting to occur. You know frustration's about to come. Cut off the news, get up and walk, go for a walk. Go get a drink in your kitchen, go get some water or something like this, right? Don't just sit there and dwell in that. Don't sit there and keep watching the news and just allow the mind to get angry. You're noticing the anger coming? Cut it off, redirect it, send the mind somewhere else. Go for a bike ride, go for a walk, go do some yoga, or do whatever else that you would like to do. But just cut that off and let the mind eliminate that. And that's how it looks kind of practically in day-to-day life. But if it does become a feeling, maybe you missed it. It came so quick and so strong you missed it. Then try to cut it off as a feeling. And if you miss it there, if you're noticing for a couple of minutes, for a couple of hours, you're kind of generally grumpy and irritable, you can apply right effort and cut it off there too. Okay, so this is right mindfulness. This is awareness of mind, but more specifically having awareness of the bodily sensations, the feelings, the condition of the mind, and the mental objects. Any questions on this one? Yes, sir.
Working. Okay, so body as body, I get this. Then feeling as feeling. This means like how we feel, like whether the feeling into which we are caught in is positive or negative. Is that what it means?
The feelings are what we call pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and then feelings that are neither painful nor pleasant. So pleasant feelings are like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. Those are all pleasant, but they're conditional. They're based on some condition. And then there's painful feelings like sadness, anger, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety. These are all very painful to experience. And then neither painful nor pleasant is kind of like shyness. It's not painful, it's not pleasant, it's neither painful nor pleasant. Or that person that you're sitting next to on public transportation that you don't know, your bodies may be touching their body and you feel uncomfortable, you feel dissatisfied in that situation. That's because the mind's not getting what it wants, right? So there's kind of like this neither painful nor pleasant feeling. It's discontent, it's shaken up, it's unsteady, it's uncalm.
Got it. And in this in this context of mindfulness, it means being aware in which one is caught into.
Yeah, you need to have awareness of each one of these because you're going to need to apply right effort in order to cut it off and let it go. And without your mindfulness of being aware of these things, you wouldn't be able to cut it off and let it go. Sooner or easier and easier and more, you would like to be able to catch it every single time as a bodily sensation. But you're not going to be able to do that right off the bat. It'll probably take you a couple of years to get to that point where you're gradually developing your mindfulness, where you can catch it as a bodily sensation every time and cut it off and let it go every single time. But when you're able to do this, enlightenment is very close. You're probably about 1 to 3 years away from enlightenment. If you can catch it as a bodily sensation every single time and cut it off and let it go every single time, you're very close to enlightenment at that point. But between now and then, you are going to experience all 4 of these things. And you're going to need to be able to distinguish, there's the bodily sensation. There's the feeling. There's the condition of the mind. There's the mental object. But more and more, you're going to need to be able to catch it as a bodily sensation and cut it off and let it go, because that's what's going to transform the mind and essentially rewire the mind, not allowing the mind to keep dwelling in these conditioned feelings.
If it's not caught as a feeling in the body, like a bodily sensation, if it's is it okay if it's caught on a mental state, like being aware that one is like angry or anything, and then kind of going meta and observing why is this, and kind of caught it from the maybe more intellectual state, not primal bodily sensation.
Yeah, you would like to catch it as soon as possible. If you can't catch it until it becomes a feeling, you won't actually get to enlightenment that way, because the mind is still experiencing a conditional feeling. But that is what's going to happen for a period of time until you develop all of these factors well enough. So if you catch it as a feeling, okay, that's where you catch it. But more and more, you would like to catch it as a bodily sensation. Essentially, what the Buddha is teaching you is this life cycle that discontentedness is going to go through. That first, there's going to be a bodily sensation. Then you're going to experience the feeling, because the mind's now wired to experience that feeling. Then it's going to affect the condition of your mind more long term, and it's going to feed this mental object. So what you would like to do is back that up as much as possible so that you can catch it as a bodily sensation every single time. But that's going to take training and development for you to be able to do that. If you continue to allow it to become a feeling, then your mind's going to just stay wired to continue to experience conditioned feelings. So if you get it to the point where you can catch it as a bodily sensation every time and cut it off and let it go, you will transform your mind where eventually those feelings won't arise anymore. You won't have anger and frustration arising anymore, because you've caught it so many times as a bodily sensation and you've cut it off and let it go, that it won't actually come to in the mind whatsoever, that you've eliminated all the cravings, desires, attachments, that it won't arise any longer.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, it looks like we have a question here on YouTube. Let me see. page is asking, can you describe what stuffing our feelings would look like in process compared to the suggested practice? I cut a feeling off when my heart rate goes up. I was concerned I was just avoiding it. Okay, so if somebody is suppressing their feelings or pushing them down the way that some people sometimes think that's what we're teaching, but we're not, is you're going to feel pain. You're going to feel like the mind's condition of the mind is still going to be there. If you're just pushing it down and smothering it, there's still going to be those painful feelings in the chest. There's still going to be kind of a general condition of the mind that's going to feel agitated and annoyed for a while, that you haven't truly let it go out of the mind. So when you cut it off as a bodily sensation, you'll notice like, whoa, the mind's still joyful. Wow, I still feel the peacefulness in the mind. The mind's still happy, because you'll feel the bodily sensation, and then when you cut it off, it's like, whoa, the mind's still joyful. But if you're just suppressing your feelings, so it went past the bodily sensation, it now became a feeling. And now if you suppress that, you're going to still feel pain in the chest. You're going to still notice that the condition of the mind is affected. But if you've truly cut it off as a bodily sensation and let it go, or even as a feeling, you'll notice that you'll regain your cheerfulness, you'll regain your joy and your happiness. And that's how you'll know that you've truly cut it off and let it go, because you won't experience the condition of the mind and you won't experience the pain in the body any longer. Okay. All right. So it looks like that's all of our questions. Yeah? Okay. All right. So now let's go to the next step, because without this next step, you wouldn't be able to practice mindfulness, right? These are all connected, that you need to be able to practice all of them. This one is called right concentration. And I don't normally read this one, because what the Buddha is teaching you here is he's teaching you the results of having put together the entire Eightfold Path. You're going to need to know this at some point, but what I'm going to focus on is how to practice right concentration, because the Buddha teaches in other parts of his teachings how to practice right concentration. But what he's choosing to do here in the Eightfold Path is he's explaining something called the jhanas. What a jhana is its preliminary phases that your mind experiences on its way to enlightenment, that there's 4 phases that your mind goes through. There's certain enhanced qualities that you're going to experience because you've mentally absorbed a certain amount of the teachings and you've mentally absorbed a certain amount of meditation. And now you're going to start experiencing these enhanced qualities. And this is something I'm going to be teaching in about a week from now in the course, Experiencing the Jhanas and the 4 Stages of Enlightenment. And I'll just give you a little kind of glimpse into what the jhanas are. In the second jhana, you experience what's called unification of the mind, or oneness of mind. That in the unenlightened state, before the second jhana, you have a conscious mind and you have a subconscious mind. And both of these things are polluted, and you need to purify your mind in order to be able to get to enlightenment. Your conscious mind is polluted, but your subconscious mind is even more heavily polluted. So if you've ever been talking with friends and you just blurted something out and you were like, why did I say that? I don't think that way. That's not the way that I think. Why did I say that? That was so silly of me, right? That's your subconscious mind, that polluted mind, kind of throwing things up into your conscious mind, and you didn't think about it and you just kind of blurted it out, right? So by the time you get to the second jhana, you will have what's called oneness of mind, or unification of the mind, where you'll be able to see the entire mind so that you can purify the entire mind. There's no longer a conscious and subconscious mind. It's just one mind, because now seeing the entire mind, you'll be able to then purify it. Some people call this opening of the third eye, or opening of the divine eye, or the inward looking eye. You become very introspective during this period of time. So they call it the third eye, because you become very inward looking, very introspective. But what this is the unification of the mind, where you can see the entire mind. And you're going to need that in order to be able to get to the first, second, third, and the 4th stage of enlightenment. You're going to need to be able to fully see everything that's going on in your mind so that you can fully purify it. So these 4 jhanas, there's certain heightened qualities that you experience as you're making your way through these jhanas. It's not just that you're experiencing these qualities in meditation. This is one of the misunderstandings about the jhanas. Some people think that you turn these jhanas on or you turn them off,
or that you only experience them while you're in meditation. But the reality is that these are heightened qualities of awareness that you're experiencing as your mind's moving to this higher consciousness. And you start experiencing these heightened qualities. And these are qualities that you need in order to further refine the mind and purify the mind, getting into the first, second, third, and actually the fourth stage of enlightenment, where the mind is actually enlightened. In the first, second, and third stage, the mind's not actually enlightened yet. It's not until the fourth stage that the mind's actually enlightened. But without these jhanas and these heightened qualities, you wouldn't actually be able to get to the first, second, third, and fourth stage of enlightenment. So I'm not going to explain these right now. I'm going to focus on what right concentration is and how to actually practice it. But you will need to know this at some point. Essentially, the way you get to the jhanas is you need to dial in the Eightfold Path really, really closely and practice it for an extended period of time. I've had some students that have gotten into the jhanas within the first 3, 4, even 6 months of their practice. Other people take many years to be able to get to the jhanas. Everybody's a little bit different, and you should never compare yourself to somebody else. You're on your own independent journey, but these can be experienced as soon as, maybe 4, 5, even 6 months. I've seen some students experience the jhanas. So that's what the Buddha is describing here, is these enhanced qualities or phases that your mind goes through. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus you on the practice of right concentration, because that's what you're going to need in order to get into the jhanas. Is the Buddha talks about two things about practicing right concentration. He talks about developing a meditation practice, and he talks about practicing what's called singleness of mind. A daily meditation practice is going to need to develop in order for you to move your mind towards mindfulness or awareness of mind. So the breathing mindfulness meditation that we did this morning, this is helping you to cultivate the mind and develop awareness of the mind, right? This awareness of the mind that we just talked about. That when you're focused on the breath, you're developing awareness of mind, because when your mind moves off the breath, you know that. That's awareness of mind. You're also developing concentration, where your mind's focused on a single object and able to focus on that single object of the breath. And when the mind moves off, you know that. So those are two wholesome qualities that you're cultivating in breathing mindfulness meditation, is mindfulness and concentration. So if you got a bombardment of thoughts during your meditation, this is completely normal, particularly for someone who's just starting out. You're not bad at meditation. It's just that your mind's overactive and it's busy and it hasn't had very much training yet. Or you might have indulged in a thought. You might have had a thought, and then like 2 or 3 minutes down the road, you realize I'm meditating. Let me bring my mind back to the breath. This is a common thing too, that you might indulge in a thought for a period of time. So the goal in this meditation isn't to eliminate your thoughts. Sometimes people think that's the case based on the instruction and the guidance. The goal of this meditation is to have mindfulness or awareness of mind, and to develop concentration, and be able to train the mind to let go, let go, let go. Because if you think back to that boyfriend or girlfriend, when you guys broke up, you couldn't let go. That's the reason why you were angry or frustrated. That's why you were lonely and bored. That's why you felt like you missed this person, because you couldn't let go. But at some point, your mind let go. You were like, you know what? If he wants to be with someone else, so be it. And you let go. Or if she wants to move to another country, so be it, and you let go. And then you gained your peacefulness. So this meditation isn't training you to eliminate your thoughts. You're going to still have thoughts in meditation. Even when you're enlightened, you're still going to have thoughts. But the difference is that in the unenlightened state, you're going to have a bombardment of thoughts, or you're going to indulge in a thought and follow it for a period of time before you realize that, oh yeah, that's right, I'm meditating. An enlightened being, they're going to have a thought, they're going to notice it right away, and they're going to cut it off and let it go right away. And then they're going to be still. The mind's going to be still and quieted for maybe 30 seconds or a minute or two. And then they're going to have another thought. And then they're going to cut it off and let it go. So there's going to be this stillness and this quietness between their thoughts, right? But they're still going to have thoughts during meditation. So wherever you are in your meditation, that's fine. It might take you quite a while to be able to get to this point where you have stillness and quietness in your mind. But more and more through your dedicated practice, you're developing your mindfulness or awareness of mind, and you're developing your concentration. So if you get to the end of your meditation and you're like, wow, my mind is so busy today, that was a good meditation, because you're aware of your mind. You're developing mindfulness. If you get to the end of your meditation, you're like, wow, the mind's quite peaceful today. That was a good meditation too. That was beneficial. So you shouldn't judge your meditation as good or bad, because no matter what, it's a beneficial meditation. If you get to the end of your meditation and you know your mind's busy, then maybe any major decisions that you have that day, maybe you delay them for another day when your mind's more calm, right? So don't suggest you get trapped into judging your meditation as good or bad. All meditation is beneficial. So you'd like to build up this breathing mindfulness meditation where each day, 2 or 3 times a day, you're developing your meditation practice. And if you can build up to 30 minutes or more per session, this is ideal. Now, this probably sounds like a lot to some of you, depending on what you've got going on in your life. 2 or 3 meditations for 30 minutes, that can sound like a lot. But if you look at your life, there's probably certain unbeneficial things that you're doing that if you cleared those things out of your life, you'd have more time for meditation. So if you're on Facebook or YouTube or Instagram or any of these other places for like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours a day, you can shrink that down and do it more in moderation, maybe 30 minutes or an hour a day. You have plenty of time to be able to meditate, right? But if you do 5, 10 minutes of meditation per session, and that's where you start, wonderful, because you're going to need time to gradually build up your practice. It can take 6 months, a year, even 2 years to build up to this type of frequency of 2 or 3 for 30 minutes or more. So wherever you start is where you'll start. What you'll notice is frequency is more important than duration. So if it's 1 meditation for 30 minutes or 2 for 15, I suggest you go for the 2 for 15. That's going to be more beneficial for you. And then gradually expand that. From 15 minutes, expand it, 18 minutes, 20 minutes, 22 minutes. And this is what's going to help you to gradually get to the point where you've built up to this level of frequency. And then once you get your breathing mindfulness meditation stabilized, maybe after 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, you'd like to bring in the loving kindness meditation. This is what's going to really help your mind to eliminate your anger, your hatred, your ill will. It's going to essentially rewire the mind. You're going to need these 2 meditations. There's plenty of meditations out there in the world that people are teaching right now, but they're not all taught by the Buddha. And some of these meditations are actually taking your mind in the opposite direction of enlightenment. There's only 2 primary meditations that you need because it's addressing 2 of the 3 primary problems that the Buddha discovered. He discovered 3 primary problems, which goes deeper into what's called the 10 fetters. These are the 10 pollutions. But these 3 primary problems, 2 of them are addressed by these 2 meditations. And then the third one is addressed by something else. So you don't need to learn 20, 30, 50 different meditations. If you just learn these 2 and get really, really deep with it, you'll be able to develop your mind. And then there's 2 other specialized meditations. One is to eliminate sexual cravings. One is to help you what's called realize non-self. Not everybody's going to need these 2, and they're taught on a case-by-case basis. They're in the books that I teach. They're in various courses and retreats that I teach, but not everybody's going to need them. So this is what you would like to build up to, a daily, consistent meditation practice of 2 or 3 sessions per day for 30 minutes or more. Then you would like to practice singleness of mind. What singleness of mind is where you do just one thing at a time. If you've been taught to multitask, your mind actually can't do this. You can't do more than one thing at a time. You can only do one thing at a time. If you're talking on the phone, you're watching TV, and you're eating a sandwich, you're not actually doing all 3 things at one time. You're talking on the phone for a couple of seconds, you're watching TV for a couple of seconds, and you're eating your sandwich. Your mind's rapidly cycling through this. And if you're doing this all day at work, you might get home and find it very challenging to relax. You might find that your mind is overactive. You have anxiety, you have stress. It's kind of like a racehorse. If a racehorse runs around a track all day, when it goes to the barn, it can't calm down. It's really hyped up. And that's what your mind does in the unenlightened state. If your mind is bouncing around from thing to thing to thing to thing, you're going to find it very challenging to be able to be focused and concentrated. So the Buddha teaches you to do one thing at a time, because that's all your mind can do anyway. It was in the 1960s when computers came out that people started talking about multitasking, because a computer can multitask. It's got a computer chip. It can do multiple tasks at one time, but a human mind can't, right? So if you train your mind to do just one thing at a time, you're going to notice the focus and concentration and clarity. So when you're in that business meeting and your mind is thinking about going to Thailand, and you're starting to get so excited about going to Thailand, you say, no. You cut that off and let that go, and you come back to the business meeting and you just focus on that. Or if you're washing dishes and your mind is thinking about something else, you cut that off. You apply right effort. So that's where your mindfulness is going to come in, that you can see your mind has wandered, and now you apply right effort to cut that off and let it go, right? And now more and more your mind is in the present moment, where you're just focused on using singleness of mind. It's kind of like if you had a piece of wood and you had a steel rod and you grinded this steel rod back and forth in the wood, it's going to create a groove in the wood. Initially, that steel rod's going to bounce around a lot because there's no groove there. That's your mind bouncing around. But if you grind this steel rod back and forth enough, you're going to get a deeper and deeper groove. And it's going to be harder and harder for it to pop out. And when it does pop out, you're going to notice it and you'll bring it right back. But eventually, if you grind this steel rod back and forth in the wood long enough, you're going to get a deep enough groove that it won't ever pop out. You can be focused and concentrated all day long, right? But if you don't train your mind this way, your mind's not ever going to have that quality. So you need the meditation to focus on the breath and build that concentration. But then in day-to-day life, you're going to need to practice right concentration as well. So right now, if you're listening to me and you're maybe thinking about going to eat pizza or go get an iced coffee or mango and sticky rice or something like this, you cut that off and bring it back and you're like, no, I'm in this class. Let me focus on this conversation, right? So this is how you refine your mind more and more and more. You just stay focused on what it is that you're doing, single-threadedly, just doing one thing at a time. And this is where you'll be able to concentrate and have real focus and clarity of mind all throughout your day. So you're developing your meditation practice and practicing singleness of mind so that you have mindfulness or awareness of mind. And then with your mindfulness and awareness of mind, you can apply right effort. You can eliminate unwholesome qualities and you can cultivate wholesome qualities. And this is what's going to help you with your moral conduct so that you can now practice your moral conduct in such a way that you're not causing harm to others through your moral conduct. Because any harm that you put out, it's going to come back to you. And all of this is based on the wisdom section, that your mind is causing your own discontent feelings. So just to kind of recap what we were talking about today, and then I'll open up to any and all questions that you guys have, is right effort is taking the initiative to eliminate unwholesome aspects of the mind and cultivate wholesome qualities in the mind. Right mindfulness is having awareness of the mind, but more specifically, the four foundations of mindfulness, being aware of those bodily sensations, the early warning system that is alerting you that your mind's about to become discontent. Then the feelings themselves, then the condition of the mind, the general overall condition for multiple minutes, hours, or days, and then the mental objects, building awareness of those things. But you might start for the first several months of just having general awareness of the mind, your thoughts and ideas and the things that are going through your mind. And then practicing right concentration, where you're working on developing a meditation practice and you're developing singleness of mind, where you're only doing one thing at a time. All of these factors, all 8 factors, are going to lead to you experiencing the jhanas, these heightened qualities of mind, where the light bulb is flickering and starting to give you an indication that you're putting together all the factors of the Eightfold Path really well, and you're going to notice that your mind's moving into the jhanas. This is where it becomes really real, because you see these words from 2,500 years ago that this man spoke. And he said, hey, if you practice this Eightfold Path, you're going to experience these qualities. And you've been working on that for several months. And now when you implement his teachings and you start experiencing the exact qualities that he talked about 2,500 years ago, you're like, whoa, this is really true. This is leading exactly where he said it would, to these improved qualities of mind. And now with those improved qualities of mind, you can make your way into the first, second, third, and fourth stage of enlightenment. Okay, so this is right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. This is the Eightfold Path mental discipline section. So do you guys have any questions on this, either here at the temple or online? You're welcome, Paige. Pleased to help you. maybe you can come up after class and I can help you with it, because that one takes a lot of time to really talk about. I normally take a whole class period on wisdom and moral conduct. So right view, it takes a lot to be able to learn that. I really just briefly touched it, where it normally takes about 45 minutes. So maybe you can come up after class and I'll help you understand a little bit. And maybe I'll even give you some links to YouTube videos where I've taught it more thoroughly. And you have the book, so you can also read it in the book as well. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions anywhere. So what I'm going to do is just end by thanking all of you guys for joining. Thank you for being interested in learning the teachings of the Buddha. Thank you for your questions and your interest to come to the temple and understand his teachings. If you'd like to learn more, I meet here each Sunday and Wednesday. There's also Saturday classes as well. Sunday and Wednesday is really good for people who are just starting out, and you can attend here at the temple. And if you're traveling, you can attend online, live through Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom. And when you can't attend live, either 9 a.m. or 9 p.m. Thai time, these classes are all recorded. So you can actually watch the recording at your own leisure whenever you have time. And if you'd like help with the books and videos and podcasts and even personal guidance, this is all available for you at no cost. You can sit down with me and I'll help you with personal guidance. You can get access to our books, our videos, and our podcasts. It's all available for you at no cost. Even our classes and courses and retreats, they're always live streamed, and you can get access to those at no cost, or come here to the temple. So if you'd like help to eliminate these discontent feelings, if you'd like to heal from what hurt you so that you never need to hurt ever again, that's what the teachings of the Buddha are for. To heal from what hurt you, to do this inner work so that you never need to actually hurt ever again. But what's hurting you is actually inside your own mind. It's not the outside world. So as long as you focus on the outside world, you're not going to be able to get to real peace and real joy. But when you start understanding the true problem, which is inside your own mind, and you start applying the solution to that, you'll actually get to a real result, and you can see the real improvement. So thank you all for joining. If you ever like to come again, you're more than welcome. And if you like to get access to the books, you can get those on our website or here at the temple. So whatever you choose to do, have a very wonderful and lovely rest of your day. We'll see you next time. Sawadee Kap, Sawadee Kap, Sawadee Kap.
Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.